Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Women Serve Too. Today we have Kim Possible, which she's going to explain that nickname. But she is a mother of three, certified teacher, certified counselor, military veteran, and motivational speaker. She loves finding ways to serve veterans and families and has led thousands of philanthropic projects, connecting with hundreds of organizations to serve others in many ways to leave her mark and legacy to inspire others with action. She has earned the name Kim Possible for continuing to find positivity and making things happen other thought was impossible. All right, Kim, I'm so excited that you were here.
Thank you so much. And what a great platform and what a great audience to talk to and connect with. Thank you so much.
Well, I always like to start off with the women explaining or telling us about their service. So, kind of talk about your service and how your service different from others.
Absolutely. So, everybody remembers 9/11 happened. The call for duty was put out, and I had scholarships to play sports and decided to shave my head, donate my hair, and join the Navy. It was a pretty interesting time to sign up with the call and the need and the different things that were going on. How my military service was different with that too is I always say there's the military and then there's Kim's military. I say that because just like you heard in that intro of the work that I'm doing, it's amazing when you're connected with military veterans and you put out a need or a call or you find ways to connect resources or get your laundry done or know when the shower is going to be turned off on a ship so that you have water. You connect with people. When you connect with people, people do things and kind of you're just helping everybody else and it just makes the world go round. So my service started off like that, where it was just how can I connect with so many people? How can I give back? We transported Marines on our ship. So for me, it was instead of not working with them and being mad because they work out all the time, use all the ship water and make longer lines for eating food, it was connect with some of them and make friends, be able to see and help them from wherever they were to where they wanted to go. And some people don't have that in life, period. And to have that in the military was phenomenal. And to be able to connect with those resources to be able to make a difference. One thing that I loved was when I was stationed in Japan, we used to get busloads of Japanese sailors and soldiers, Marines to join for philanthropic work off base at a Japanese orphanage and giving back to these kids. And I always tell the story like, you know how you come home and you have a dog, or even if you have kids, they're at the window, they're waiting, they're so excited. That's how these kids were every time you went. So when you went and you went back and told people about it, more people brought more people to come, and to be able to connect with your military service on base, but also off base with those that are on base is just phenomenal and making the world go round in a much better place.
That's so awesome, especially with like being stationed overseas and working with foreigners, right? Like my first duty station was Germany, so being involved with the culture, it's unique and it's something I always tell people that you should at least try to get stationed or, do something overseas because it really is like so culturally enriching and it's just so much fun and you can learn so much just being over there. So, what did you do to inspire others to be a part of that action giving back in Japan?
So a lot of the times it's just putting out the need. They say, build it, they will come. That's pretty much what it was. I was injured and taken off of my ship. So I was no longer on ship duty. I was on shore duty. So I was on the base working with the master chief on the base. So getting out communications was easy. People go to the gym all the time because they want to use computers. They want to use the basketball courts. So I was posting things like that back in 2000 2000, where now, I mean, social media is huge for things, but getting the word out of just, hey, this was something to do with your time. A lot of the times on military bases, you're away from family. You want to do something and people want to give back, and especially military veterans with giving back. So it was, we needed more buses. We didn't have enough buses. So it was a wonderful problem to have, but it was able to connect those pieces. And for me, it like really sparked that light even more from what I had at home and what I was doing before the military, to just say, hey, I could do this overseas. I could travel the world and do this. I can connect people. And I really feel like it was a gift from God that I knew at a young age. And now to be able to connect with veterans in multiple ways and take one small idea and just, I always say it's like a ripple effect. You just drop it and watch all these people just say, hey, how can I help? And oh, I know this person and I can do this. So then connecting those pieces for them to make change happen.
So what exactly did you do with the Japanese orphans?
So yeah, we would do different things with crafts, whether it's playing sports, bringing different things that we're either on the English side, teaching them the Americans, different things that we do in America, but also learning from them. Some of them were orphans, but I remember one, she was the sweetest, and she would just play the piano all the time. And I mean, if somebody would have been able to do social media with her now, she would be adopted and be making millions because she was just talented. I remember going to the Caribbean islands and getting my hair braided and going back there, and they would literally just touch my hair. So then we had some beauticians and stuff come back and actually braid some of their hair. So it was just, like you said, it was introducing them to some of our cultures and different sports and things that we do, but also learning from them, which just, I mean, it just melted your heart, especially if people didn't have families yet. They were younger sailors, soldiers, but they loved connecting with kids. On the military base, you have all us older, people. So then it was just like a way to connect with kids and give them an opportunity. And you would just see the biggest teddy bears just warm up to these little kids. It was so cute.
So being in like a foreign country, like what was like that initial reason or spark to get you to start working with the orphanage? Like what was your why in the beginning?
I just wanted to help, and I knew I wanted to help kids. And when I sat back, when I asked the Master Chief, I was like, hey, what positive things do we do on base, off base? And he laughed at me and he's like, nothing. We get drunk, we do bad things to people, we get in car accidents, we pee on stuff. And he was like, it's all negative, fights. And I was just like, well, that's horrible. I was like, well, I need a bus. And he's like, why? I was like, they have orphanages out here. I was like, a lot of them have a lot of kids. I was like, I love kids. I was like, people love kids. Like, let's just go help kids. So he was like, fine, go ahead, take it. So they got me a bus, and the first week we had a bus. The second week we needed 3 buses, and it just kept growing. And it was like, how can we keep doing this? And it was awesome because before COVID, a friend of mine was still in Japan, and they were still doing what we did back in 2003 at the different base and connecting with the orphanages. So to see that what you did wasn't that ripple that just faded out and died, it was something that other people had, and I get goosebumps every time I talk about it. It's
I
that
know I got goosebumps too.
yes, it just you touch, you feel it, and it's like you have to go back. And for me, it was like I love projects like that. I've always wanted to be a mom. I dreamt about being a mom since I was a little kid and had baby dolls. They were like my real baby dolls. So for me, it was like I missed kids. I missed my nieces and nephews, and was like, hey, well, let's go give to kids that have nobody. So yeah, it was
That
awesome.
is so phenomenal. Like 20 years later and it's still going on. That is seriously so remarkable. So you asked him for a bus and then you ended up needing 3 buses. Like how did you essentially set that whole thing up? So say if someone was overseas and wanted to do something similar, like what was your process or what would you tell people like how to start something like this?
And the awesome part is one, you have to have base support. You can have the idea, you can get the connections out in the community. I never want to hurt people and give them a promise that I can't make sure I'm going to come through on. So for me, it was I wanted the base permission first. Once I got base permission of saying, hey, here's an idea, this is what I plan to do. And it was reach out to find the need. And he was like, he knew a lot about the culture. He was mixed as well with being married to Japanese. So he knew the need that was there too. So it was kind of like find the right person and then just build from there. My building was reaching out to find orphanages that were one, close, two, that needed help, three, that would allow us to come as well. And then four, had somebody that could communicate with us as well on the English side. Sometimes that is a difficulty when you're in a foreign country. I knew that we can get translators from our side too, but at the same time, it's if that person can't be there, you want to be able to have some type of communication with how they function, their understanding from their side. From that, it was back in the day. I mean, everything's so much easier now because we were pen and paper. It was, sign up sheet. We didn't have sign up ahead of time really that was done. It was just come the day of, once we fill the buses, we would apologize if we didn't have room. Some people would take cars and they'd end up driving with some of the, sailors that had a license and stuff like that on base. So it was like a beautiful thing to just see people come together to say, hey, I want to help with this cause, and to see the masses come.
That is like, I'm just so amazed by that. Like, that is just so awesome to hear. Like, how long were you in the military and how long were you in Japan?
So I wasn't in Japan long, and I was actually stationed in 3 different parts of Japan. So I was in Sasebo, Japan, then I was in Yokosuka, Japan, and Okinawa. Yokosuka, Japan is where we did the volunteer work. We did try to start up some stuff in Sasebo. I was not there, where I did not return back to Sasebo. So the ideas I had on base at Sasebo, I was trying to do, I was able to successfully do at Yokosuka after I got medically injured and taken off my ship. It was like, well, this is even better because now we could do this all the time because I'm always here. So it kind of worked out that way. So it was beautiful.
So how long, I know you said you got taken off your ship. How long were you on shore?
So I ended up being on shore. Now I got to think numbers because I really never broke it down. I know in 2003, I ended up getting, so it was about a year, almost both, a little less than a year on the ship, and then a little over a year at Yokosuka military base.
And you mentioned being medically, like, was it, did it up getting like medically discharged or anything? Like, how was your transition out of the military?
Yeah, so I knew that I was being processed out when I was training to go to war. I ended up getting injured while doing firefighting school. I had a seizure. The next day, I had 3 more seizures. It's not something you can continuously have and be on a ship. I tried to fight it, wanted shore duty because I was like, well, your reasons is because of the ship. So you take the ship away. Sure, I could still, like, there's still so much of me I could give back. And they said, no, that's just not how it works. So I was medically discharged. You do sit in a waiting while you're waiting to be med board and go through the process of that and seeing doctors. So during that time, it was really slow. But then once it was like decision, it was 2 days later, I was having to fly. And the challenge I had was I had a son. My son was just born, and I did not have a birth certificate or a certificate of birth for him. Therefore, I couldn't get a passport. Therefore, how was I going to fly and be able to take my son with me? So I had to go to the embassy to actually get special paperment and documentation. And it'll be interesting to see because we're going for his passport this year to see how they're like, how did you get to America? Like, we
So did
have
he
no,
not end up getting a passport?
he didn't need a passport. We had to fly with a certain piece of paper that had to be, it was like literally stamped and embedded with his face on it. And we had to hand it to certain people in the airport in order for them to actually let me take him with me. It was very scary because I was just like, you don't speak well. I tried to learn Japanese, so you don't speak much, but it's like, I got to make sure my child's with me. Like, no, you can't take him from me. And they're like, this paper's so important. It's like, who's the right person? Like, don't open it. Are you right? And but it all worked out. And it's really cool now because he has dual citizenship, Japanese and American, because he was born on a military base, which is considered U.S. soil. So it makes him even more unique.
That is awesome. So you ended up coming back to the States with your son. How long after that did you transition? And how was your transition out?
So I knew when I was in that I wanted to work with kids. I was taking some classes to go to school while I was on my ship, also while I was on shore duty. So for me, it was, I knew I was going to continue going to school. 6 days after I got home, I actually enlisted in a community college to start taking classes for my associate's degree, and then continued on with my bachelor's and then my master's degree as well, where that's really how I got the name Kim Possible. And when you look back at it now, like different hurdles and challenges that you jumped, it's like, okay, a single mom at the time of 2, just moved in a new home. I'm working 5 part-time jobs and taking 6 master's degree classes in 1 semester. And the the admissions lady is like, you can't take 6, 2 is considered full-time. And I was like, I know, but I'm Kim Possible. Like, I got a time limit. I got, stuff I need to do. I was like, look, I have to get straight A's because I told my kids I was going to get straight A's. And she's like, well, if you do it, you'd be the fastest to finish our program. And I did it. My kids even came with me to one of my classes. And it was just a phenomenal experience to be able to do different things to connect with that transition. And a lot of it, I stayed busy and I stayed away from everything having to do with the military. I did not do philanthropic work with the military. I was still doing it through schools and doing different things with teaching and counseling. I was mad because I couldn't finish out my time, but at the same time, it was like they kicked me out so quick, and it was just like that change. And it was like, okay, you know how you want to shut the door or close the chapter. I didn't want to look back. And it literally took me, I was going to take the end all test for my counseling degree at my school for my master's, and a gentleman was walking by and had a Marine symbol on his bag. And I'm like, oh, thank you for your service. And he's like, how do you know? Do I know you? And I was like, your bag. He's like, oh, and just started talking, really short talk. And he was like, you sound like you like to help people. I was like, totally do. Like, and he's like, you ever heard of the Mission Continues? And I'm like, no, what's that? And he's like, a nonprofit that connects, community leaders and giving back to the community. And I'm like, oh, tell me more. So I'm listening to him talk all about this, missing that I'm supposed to be taking my final test. So I was like, wait, I got to go. So I'm so pumped from that. I get to the door. My teacher's like, we almost can't let you in, Kim. I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is going to change my life. I just met this Marine. And he's like, Kim, just go sit down, take the test. So I'm like so pumped. Aced my test, which was phenomenal because they still can't believe that I finished the program as fast as I can, let alone ace the test. And for me, I was like, no. So then I got connected with the Mission Continues, which is so many military veterans, so many military veteran nonprofits across the whole entire United States, other veterans just like me wanting to connect with communities and give back. And then you could take a position and you would get like $5,000 to do, 4 projects a year. And I'm like, ooh, $5,000 more, 4 more projects. Let's add it on. And I ended up doing way more than that. But it was a missing piece that I had for so long, staying busy doing so much else. But then it brought me right back to where I belong with my brothers and sisters. That's for sure.
It's crazy how life works, right?
So true. So true.
So, okay, so what are these projects? Do they give you just money? Do you come up with the projects?
So they started when I started back, which I really think I hit 10 years, maybe 11 years now since I started with the Mission Continues. And what they had was a vision back then of service platoons. The service platoons would then be a leader in the community that's a veteran that would connect with other nonprofits to fill in a need or a cause in that town or that location. So in Chicago, it was okay, Chicago is so huge, you have no boundaries because you're starting this. We want about 3, maybe 6 platoons in the far out future of just mobilizing and solving different things. At the time, my son was fighting a rare genetic disease and almost lost his life. The crazy part was right before that, we connected with food deserts in Chicago. There are miles that have no healthy food options sold at any store. We have so many lots that were just empty space, not being used. It was like, okay, well, let's get them from the city or somebody that's a community member that's close with an organization that can maintain and upkeep a garden, but let's go build gardens in the food deserts. So we started doing that, and it worked with my son because he needed to eat super healthy for his condition he had to not have issues later. So now you have my son coming and doing motivational speaking. He actually wrote a book about one person can make a difference and everyone should try, about wanting how a kid 6 years old can go and make a difference. So that was the focus that we had for that project. Mission Continues would give us $5,000 a year to be able to do 4 service projects. So it would be pick a date, go to a project, do about 4 hours with volunteers to create a garden or create a space in a garden to give back. We're able to connect in a lot more ways too by doing support events where it didn't cost us money for Mission Continues, but we could connect with somebody else doing an event. Say they were doing something for veterans, we could bring more veterans. And then we also do social events where we just get together, we go bowling, free food, go to a Bears game, Cubs game or something in Chicago. I actually brought my sons on the field. I was the honored veteran after the third inning. So I brought my kids with me and we held out plates that said we love to inspire others. So it was just like so cute how you give back with family, you're connected with veterans, but you're connecting with the community and you're giving back in so many different ways. So different platoons can have different projects. For me, it was Mission Continues. I was able to focus on that, but then connect with hundreds of other projects every single year. We were told to do 4, but at the same time, it was like, I could do 4 in a week. Like it was easy for me. And it would start with something basic of just finding a need and then filling that need. We've done so many projects. My biggest thing is we see a lot about, hey, come to this veteran's funeral. Let's honor them and respect them in different ways, especially the older generations and older veterans by their 100th birthday. I love finding out about a 100th veteran birthday. I post it. I have so many cards that we get. My son one year, and actually today is the anniversary for Harold. It was one of the veterans that was turning 100, where my son was like, Mom, I want to get cards. His school, so many other kids. I mean, we had little gifts and stuff. He made a picture frame with his business card and wrote a note to Harold in it. And oh, literally makes me cry. The granddaughter called me after his birthday because he got balloons and all these cards from so many kids. Literally, it was, I get goosebumps. I love it. But she said that on his birthday, he walked up to that table where my son's picture frame was over 100 times during the party and just kept shaking it and hugging it. And it was like to see and give that thank you. And for me, it's when we connect with these kids and they make cards, it's not just a random 100 birthday. It's like personalized for that veteran. It's telling them some positive words are getting better. We just did a female veteran that turned 100 that injured her hip right before her birthday. So she was in the hospital too. And we know that challenges come when you're older and you have something like that. So it was like, so now she's opening up cards from different female veterans that really connect because now you're getting older, more minds can take out more time. 10 minutes, I tell people, is nothing. If you even take 5, write that personal, nice, kind message. We had a lot of people that maybe can't mail out a card. It takes a lot sometimes. So buy a card, mail out a card, get a stamp, put it on. So for me, it'd be making a post on social media where people comment. But then we hand write out every single comment with every single person's name to put on a card or something to give to them. And it means so much to them that we could never really know. But to give them that when they're here still is just, we need to do more of it. So I love it.
That, like, it just speaks volumes, right? Like, he goes to the desk 100 times, like, and just even saying a small little thank you or happy birthday can mean so much to something or someone, not something, someone. And it just, kind of instilling that with your kids too. Like, your kids see what you're doing, so they want to continue that work. So like you said before, it's like that ripple effect. The mission continues. Is it veterans coming together and doing stuff for the community, or is it veterans coming together to do other things for veterans?
So it's veterans and community coming together to give back to a cause. Each platoon has different causes across the US, but there's different ways that they do connect. We just did an example for one of the platoons we connected here in Chicago. It was Pullman Workshop. We built, I think it was 26 benches in 4 hours that are going to go to community parks all around Chicago for places to sit and stuff like that that's needed. And it was community members plus veterans coming together and building to then give back. So for them, it's, the social events is more veteran and veteran services to connect them about what's out there because you have your challenges with mental health and things like that. So those supportive services, getting their benefits, knowing what options are out there, or even nonprofits, learning about them, but then also connecting with the community as well, because everywhere we go, you always hear it. You can have a philanthropic project, and it can go good. But when you get a philanthropic project with veterans, you always get more done at a lot less time. You're able to do a little bit more because you have those leaders that just come out and step out and help. They're automatic brothers and sisters. My oldest son talks about it all the time. He says, every time you go to a military event, it's family. You don't even know them, but they're family. And that's just the environment, the attitude, the vibe, the energy you get. And it's priceless. That's why I say, like, these philanthropic events, a lot of people are like, I don't have time. Or when you make time, you will see that during that time, you will get more than you ever thought, especially if you go and say you're building a bench, but you talk to the person next to you while building a bench, and you sit next to somebody else while you eat pizza and take your break, or you're in the bathroom washing your hands and start a conversation with somebody else. Where that leads you, we've had people land jobs. We have people that ended up meeting and getting married. I mean, it's, you never know at a nonprofit event what's going to happen, but that good energy and giving back. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It took me, I think I was at a Tony Robbins event where it was like the science behind philanthropic work, how your brain waves work with your heart waves. They literally beat at the same time when you're doing philanthropic work, when you're giving back to others. So to be able to have that energy and inspire others to say, hey, you have 3 kids, you're a single mom, you're working how many jobs and how many classes, and you still found time. You got to make a way, and when you do, your kids will love you for it. They'll want to come back and do some more.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the science thing because I can't remember the quote, but I do, or, the research behind it, but I do remember there is something positive with the brain change, the chemicals in your body when you do volunteer your time.
Yes.
Uh, so how did you start the Chicago service platoons? And do you did you just start one? Because I think you said, they wanted to start 6. Are you in charge of all 6? How did you just start one and then, or did you just start all 6 and you just said, fuck it?
So no, I only started one. I stayed with them a couple years, and then we do turn over because it is all volunteer work that you're doing it. I did turn it over and had other people that then became service leaders, that started platoons. We did multiply to 3 platoons in Chicago. There were some changes within Mission Continues as well, with their programs and different things. So we stayed at 3 for right now in Chicago. They are looking to grow out some other towns and cities all over the United States. So some of the focus is going there. And for me, it was build small and then get big. And I just talked to them about it this weekend, where people who were serving and rolling up their sleeves when I was a service leader are still there rolling up their sleeves. That's how we do what we do, is the volunteers that come out that are still connected in some way of saying, hey, I can't make it this time because I'm going through some rough times, but then they come out 6 months later, or the word of mouth. Any flight that I fly on, I ask to use the microphone, never told no. So I speak to airplanes filled with people. I always thank, most of the time, the pilot is Air Force, prior military. But even to take that second on the plane to say, hey, raise your hand if you're a veteran. Thank you for your service. Raise your hand if you know a veteran. The whole plane raises their hand. And then you just tell them a little bit about how there's nonprofits out there to help veterans that can maybe save a life, save someone who's struggling, be able to connect them socially, be able to get them connected to an organization that does more than just give back to the community. They give back to the veterans when you're there, and goosebumps again. And for me, it's, again, if you can say something that resonates with one person, it was worth it. And for me, when I get to baggage claim off the plane, they come. My kids are like, "Look, Mom, you're famous," and it's like, no, look how many people we're helping. Like, this is a blessing. And just to hear, I have a brother who I know has been struggling, and this is going to be great for him. And for me, it's that word of mouth. We never know, because when I got out in 2020 or 2004, I always say 2020, like, no, 2 decades ago. When we got out, there were not a lot of nonprofits. Some nonprofits weren't operating properly or giving back to veterans. Some are saying, oh, we help veterans, but they just use that as a saying. So it was hard to find good ones. And find the resources to really help. And for me, it was not only going through all of that and changing my life and going from knowing no veteran organizations to knowing hundreds and working with them and being a leader to help them do more to help community. When I then fell short in rough times and needed some of those resources and communities, I knew where to go. And it was amazing to have that support and to know that even though you could be so strong and could be doing so much, you're going to go through rough times too. And when you do, you're going to have that support and that help there, because it's hard when you just get to that moment of being rough and down and you're like, where do I even start? I can't volunteer. But by volunteering, you now know a resource that could get you a house, that could get you now furnished your whole entire house, could get you a free lawyer, that could get you, once you buy a house, could fix anything that goes wrong with your house. If you fall in hard times, there's the Ellen J. Lynch Foundation that can help you with, getting you back on your feet because maybe you had a sickness that, medical bills or something, or you need a car to get to work. But you don't know if you don't know. So having podcasts like this or veterans that can connect organizations that are not only maybe in Illinois, but are nationwide, that can help you learn something today that you share with somebody else. And now you're a part of our ripple of how we're helping others.
Yeah, because to be honest, I've never heard of the Mission Continues before. So this is definitely a new thing that I've learned. So you mentioned Chicago. I'm a huge Bears fan, so if you do any volunteer work alongside the Bears, I will fly out. Okay,
We
I'm like a
we
ride or
just
die.
did a workout. We just did a workout with some of the alumni players. It was hilarious too. It's another nonprofit merging veterans with professional players, so they connect with all different kinds, do different events. So yeah, we just did a workout with them in Hollis Hall where they practice. Some of the retired players were there, and then we had a nice dinner as well where they raffled off different items for us. So we do connect with them. We do turkey drives where we give out different turkeys and bags of food with Jewel Osco and the Chicago Bears. We do that event every year, so we take pictures with some alumni there. So we do try to connect with different organizations and different ways to give back. Like you said, I'm a huge fan. It's like, yes, let's go, and finding ways and connecting and things like that to give back. And some of them I'm hoping are going to continue because I've connected, I want to say, with 4 retired Bears players at philanthropic events where they were either donating money and time or were connected where they were the part of the sponsor taking care of the whole entire project that we were doing, giving back to veterans. So they definitely love veterans and supporting us. So it's definitely a blessing.
Okay, so for real though, like next time that happens, tell me and I'm flying out. And then I will broadcast it everywhere. like I'm like a ride or die. So yes, I will completely do that. That's so amazing. But so okay, Chicago. So getting back on track. You have some in Chicago. Where are some other locations? Where are you guys looking to expand?
Expanding wise would be more on where the need is, plus the veterans that are actually interested in it. I've always been a volunteer with Mission Continues. I never wanted to get paid by them. I always told them they were my IV of motivation to just connect more and do more. So for me, I don't know a lot of the inner scope, but that's what I would guess, that they're trying to find, just like they were for us, a veteran who's going to step up and say, hey, I want to take on doing some projects. I want to take on a lead and learn from other veterans of how to do this, because they do put you through a program to help you learn it and have support and other people there for you. And then what is the need that they're trying to do in that location? So a lot of the major cities are going to have them from, California, Florida, they have them. Yeah, Mission Continues has the website. You could sign up for a service platoon where you get emails about different projects they have in the area. I love going on vacation for my kids' sporting events and teaming up with the local platoon in the area to give back in between soccer games or basketball games. We've connected with a lot of people that I maybe knew through Facebook, or maybe met through one of the conferences or something for Mission Continues, but then you get to meet them in person and see them run a project. And help them and connect more. And it's just great. I mean, every time you go, like I said, the veterans that are there, the connections they have and resources always makes for memorable times and great people.
That's so awesome. So now I guess I'm going to have to sign up for the one in Chicago if I want to, get involved with the Bears. Um, can someone like create their own service platoon, or does the organization say, hey, this is, where we're going? Does someone want to lead it up? Or say if like me being in the middle of Oklahoma, I'm like, all right, well, let's create a platoon here. Like, how does that work?
So I think like when I did it when we first started, it was more of what was the need, and kind of what area would I be focused in. I did projects all over because we were flying the plane while building it, was how it was explained. They just had the idea and they were like, we don't know what we're doing, but let's go. So for me, I was able to have a lot of variety in locations and build a lot of connections for future platoons, where now I think it's more they want to see that the needs there and there's a veteran that's in charge willing to make that commitment, but then there's other veterans or other people that could support to carry on that platoon. So to invest money and to make different things for a platoon costs a lot of money if it's a new city. So they want to make sure it's going to be something that's able to be maintained in the future. I do know some people did have complaints. They're like, well, I wanted to start a platoon and this is my area. And it's like, okay, well, you have not a lot of people that we could really connect with or partner with. It's just a small country town. They weren't willing to invest a lot into that. And it was sad, but at the same time, it's, then you try to find the closest for them. They can't do something everywhere. I mean, it would be great or continue to build out and do, but they are open to listening to what people have or kind of what they're working with at that time. I mean, if I were to move and just build a log, I'm sure they let me build something anywhere, but that's because I earned the name Kim Possible. But I think if you show them a good idea, and like I said, they wouldn't leave you by yourself with saying, figure it all out yourself. Like, hey, this is kind of how we work. But reaching out to them, I would definitely do that if you're a veteran that's interested, even connecting to see what a platoon is like. Platoons do have different leadership opportunities within them. If you wanted to take on something, say you're good with social media, and you're like, hey, I can help the platoon out and just share some stuff or connect. It's great sometimes for people who are trying to build up themselves in a business, whether it's photography, go to one of these events, take pictures and then promote them. Whether it's social media, you want to build up your resume to then get a job. Being able to do volunteer work and stuff like that with veteran organizations. Again, you're not just helping a nonprofit, you're not helping a veteran nonprofit that has access to other people doing the same thing that can then connect you to help you grow your own business through helping them grow. Mission continues.
That I love it. Like, so for the leadership positions and like essentially starting up a platoon, like how much of a time commitment is that?
For me, I was doing a full-time job, but that was because I knew I wanted to do a lot more than what was expected. The work we did in our platoon beat out every other platoon, I think, across the United States out of the water. Even if you added all their projects up, I think we out project all of them. But that was because, again, I was doing 4 projects in a week. You do not have to do that. Their requirements, I don't know what the program has now, but it could be 16 hours a month. And that would be making sure you're having communications with your leaders that are on your team, depending on the city and how built out their team is. I know I've worked with so many nonprofits and organizations where it really depends on the team of people you have, what you can do and how much you can get done. Sometimes, when I was starting off, I didn't have connections with anybody. I didn't have no team leaders. There was no such thing. So we were just building it like, hey, you good at this? Okay, you're going to help me with that today. And you just found ways when you connect with other people and say, hey, I want to form a team, and everybody's bringing a skill, they feel needed. And sometimes that's all a veteran needs, to then feel connected, give back, feel worth something in a unit again, in a good community, having that positive vibe. But with Mission Continues, well, that's one of the things, like how it led me to so many other nonprofits and so many other organizations and different ways that veterans give back was just phenomenal. It was like that ripple effect, but at the same time, I always tell people, I was like, you could do the same habits you do every single day, whether you're walking to a store and your face is down or you're on your phone. But if you just put your phone away, or if you just pick your face up and you smile. I mean, I had birthday nails and got them changed today because I'm doing pictures tomorrow with my daughter. But I'm in there getting my nails done, hearing a veteran talk about his service to the nail technician and how his hands are jittery, so he can't do his toes. So it got me thinking. I was like, we're so doing a mani-pedi session for one of these homeless veteran stand downs or something. I said, you would be surprised. Just let them be in their own little curtain off little room. Let them get their toes done. Crazy as it sounds, so think about that. Like, yes, they're getting older, but there's a lot of them that would love that and don't have. So for me, and then of course I have to say something to the veteran. Thank you for your service. He's like, oh, how did you know? I got good ears, sir. I got good ears.
All right. So
Right.
this I do want to ask you is because you're working full time as pretty much, you know, a volunteer. You're volunteering a full time job. You have 3 kids. You're working. You were going to school. Like, how did you balance all that? How did you not get burnt out? And how did you not say, okay, the volunteer work could be, I could put it on the back burner because that's not, producing income? Because I know, we're in a society where sometimes that gets pushed back because, we need to quote, quote, make money, support our family and whatnot. So, how did you balance all that?
So the mindset you have of when you go into something and you have a strong mindset, think of boot camp. I'm gonna finish boot camp. I'm gonna get through whatever they put me through. I'm gonna get through. Are you going to finish boot camp if you have the mindset of, oh, I'm not climbing through that mud? Gas chamber? No, I'm not doing that. Swim? I don't even know how to swim. I don't know where to begin. For me, it was my mindset. When people used to say, how do you not burn out? I was like, well, you see this full plate that I have? Well, because I can do everything on this full plate and feel 100%, then I want another plate. And then when I fill that plate, like, just keep adding. So was I added a little bit at a time that would work with me in my schedule. I had to work 1099 jobs because my kids were not going to have a game and I was not going to be at their game. I had to work my own schedule. So as much as I had to do certain things on my break for lunch, I would eat, but I would be working for another company while I was on my lunch break getting paid. So I multitasked a lot. When I was going to school, I learned from a professor that was he was a doctor. He said he learned more in his car going to school than he ever did in school. So I took that as, okay, I'm going to listen in my car because I drove so many jobs and going to school and picking my kids up and going to their games. I didn't listen to music in the car. I listened to TED Talks. Whatever the subject was in the evening for class, I would listen to other professors and professionals around the world talk about that topic. So when I went into class and didn't have time to read the book, I actually knew more than the book and more than the teacher and the books the teacher read because I listened to an hour podcast that talked about this in more detail than he ever knew. And for me, it was tapping into that more, being more strategic about the things that I did. Could I do them all at once? No. I did take 4 master's classes, then 5, then 6. So it was like I had to build myself up for certain things to make sure I could handle that. When I got sick, it was, you know how it is, a single mom, you're sick and you need the paycheck, so you have to go to work sick. Where I did force myself, barely ate, barely slept. I did move in with my sister for 6 months to make sure my kids got on the bus. And that was because I felt bad. I was waking them up at 4 o'clock in the morning to have to drop them off 2 hours before school started. So I was trying to be easier on their schedule. Granted, I really think it prepared my son. He's a D1 football player, got a full ride to U of I. Thank you, Jesus. So it prepared him to be able to handle studies, travel, and do all the things because he's been doing it since he was young. But for me, it was never, I can't do this. It was never, I'm going to get a B. It was, I'm going to get straight A's. I'm never going to miss an assignment. I'm not going to miss a point. Every point I valued so much. Every game of my kids I valued. So that schedule. And that's why I say it's so different, because we have electronics where we could schedule things and remind things, or a picture of our schedule at home. So when we're over here and we can't remember where we need to be next, we're there. Where I found myself multitasking a lot, but at the same time, it was making sure that certain things that meant the most to me, my family and my kids in philanthropic work, making time for that together. So when I did these projects and I was leading, my kids were right there leading with me at every single project for the time that we were doing that. So for other people, it's like, they're maybe balancing one job, maybe not school, but kids, and they're still like, well, how do I do this? It may be something as small as having the kids help you with something to then create time. If everybody helps fold laundry, you have a half hour, then you're going to this project for 2 hours. For some people that value money, maybe it's putting a value of that philanthropic time, that 2 hours of volunteering and giving time back. Maybe saying, I want to go there, maybe to gain a resource or to gain knowledge of something. If you can get help with, one of the programs was for single moms. They give out free diapers every month through a church. They give out Christmas gifts and birthday gifts for the year. So you just did one project for 2 hours, but now connected with the resource to get free diapers every single month. Maybe gas cards, because it was COVID. I think they gave out $200 for groceries. I mean, it's paying off in the long run in other needs that you have, instead of just dollar bills straight in your account. So some people need that mindset of maybe thinking that way. And another thing I actually just said on another interview that I was doing too, I was like, some people look at a challenge in front of them as this mountain, this big mountain, like, where do I even begin? You can look at a challenge as a big mountain, or you can look at it as a little puddle, a little hurdle. And instead of looking at it saying, where do I begin? Let's begin. Give me step one, because I'm going to be ready for step two. And I always say, when you get to the top of that mountain that was so big when you were standing at the bottom, now you see 10 more mountains. Like, which mountain am I going to pick now? Like, let's go. Let the adventure begin. When you have a positive mindset going into something, it's really true that the universe works in your favor. It's crazy, but if you say, hey, I want to instill in my kids that seeds that can blossom to make them be good people and understand how easy it is to give back to somebody else. I'm going to make sure every month that we do a 2-hour project. You could start with 1 hour. They don't mind. You're coming and volunteering. It could be at a church, a local food drive. They have so many different ways now online of knowing volunteer projects to give back in different ways. So it's like, sometimes just going to the library, they might have something even posted old school way as well that's more local, but it's finding something, but then making that time and going. It may be the first time you go, you don't see something that could benefit you right away, but then you see a change in your kids, because your kids were now around somebody else whose kids are always at a project that know how to help and connected with them. And they're like, hey, this is pretty cool. Like, can we come back again, mom? And it's like, oh, you want to come back? And it's like, yes.
So for anyone who's listening, what would you say the key takeaways that you would want them to, I guess, take away from this episode?
One, be the example and be the best you. Be the example if you have kids of doing philanthropic work, making giving back to somebody else part of your routine or your habit, whether it's big or small. It could be something small where you get a toy and you give it away to a nonprofit to give to a kid for Christmas. It could be something of, at a school, they may have something that's write a card for somebody, that's sick. It could be, support a local drive for something that's maybe not necessarily money, but sending your time. I forget which company did it online, but they were saying, like, select different items and they would send a basket overseas to a sailor in need. So there's like different ways of, if it's not time, if they have a little money and they want to do something, but finding something to then give back. If you don't have kids, that's okay too. I mean, when you go to an event and you just roll up your sleeves and you just go there just to go there to give back, like, even when you get done with that project and you go home, it's a different type of sore. or it's a different type of feeling, or like you just feel enlightened and maybe lighter, because when you're there giving back to others that don't have what you have, some of your stresses and your problems don't seem as big as they were. And for me, it's like the power of words, learning something, sharing something. Those golden nuggets that we learn, I love to call them golden nuggets because it's something where it's like, this is just golden. It is strategic, it's thought about, and it's something that other people need to know about. And for me, it's like when we can plant that intrinsic want for self to be the best that we can and to show that to others, then we just see our actions follow through with what we're saying.
And for those who want to connect with you, how can they find you?
So I am on Facebook. My nonprofit is Kid Possible Worldwide. It's a nonprofit where I challenge schools, churches, clubs, sports teams to give back in a positive way in their community. I'm building out a program this year that we're going to promote to schools. My goal is to have philanthropic work through schools throughout every single grade level. Why wait for high school for seniors to rush to be able to graduate and not connect those pieces that I talked about during this podcast? Let's teach and reach them when they're young. Kindergarten, a half hour for a year. First grade, 1 hour. One, we're building families because they have to volunteer and bond together. So we're doing the things that I told you where we're getting them to come out. Now we're changing the habits of the future generations of the young kids. Now they're going to see how easy it is that if they're at a campus or a university or a school, they can collect warm winter items and help the homeless during the cold in the winter every year. It's how to set up and do what you were asking, like to break down, where do you even start? We want to build out that program that makes it so easy for a school to pick, hey, how many hours do I, how many projects do I want to do? And let's just throw it out there to the kids like we threw those buses out there. Hey, here's an opportunity, here's an event. If you want to do it, great. Can you imagine a school of 100 kids? Say 10 out of 100. I know it would probably be 90 out of 100, but say 10 volunteer a half hour and do something. That's 10 people we changed. For me, it's if we can spark that and do that with the younger kids, they'll inspire and motivate us older ones.
That's honestly so inspiring. And ever since like this whole episode, like I'm like, oh, I need to, I have to not have to, but I want to do more. And, I love that you touched on it and how like you're incorporating it with your kids. Cause I have 4 young kids too. And, you do want to make a difference. You want your kids to grow up to be, good humans. So that is such a good thing to like instill. And then especially since we're in that time and age where we're constantly on our phones, we're constantly disconnected, this community can, help build those bonds in that family and then help with those bonds and that social aspect for, your community and other veterans. So I love your whole idea on starting young because, as a fitness coach myself, I always tell people start your kids young on healthy habits. And, you know, you don't have to obviously, like my kids eat mac and cheese all the time. Like it's just, but incorporating, those healthy habits so they can, stick with them and grow into, keep those habits going into adulthood.
It's so true. And my daughter was 6 months old. She was born February 2020, right before COVID. So during COVID, we were filling bags with food for homeless and veterans in need. So she was on my chest facing forward as I'm filling bags for 2 hours. So I put a Mission Continue shirt on her and put her in the middle of a table and handed her a bag of coffee. And she took the coffee and put it in the bag. It was like, see, I know it. So we took a picture and she was just posted, and it was, if a 6-month-old can volunteer during COVID, so can you. And it was, it's just showing them. When you show them, they see what we do and they replicate that. So if you want your kids to be good, be that example and make that time. I'm not saying every month you have to do an hour. Start off slow, once a year. make it a family tradition of something that you do, that you join together. And it doesn't have to be at a food pantry doing food. Some people don't like that. Find some that could be about animals. My biggest thing is create something yourself that hasn't been done. If you see a need, fill that need, find a way. My son worked with Chance the Rapper during warm winter items. He said, Science Museum, he rented out. He said, bring an item, you get a free concert. My son needed a whole entire bus because he asked his team, his school, the neighbors, our family. We put boxes in businesses and picked them up. And it was like, here's a, 8-year-old kid, inspiring and just collecting because of word of mouth. He said something, but it's crazy too when you see that spark in your kids, where your kids all of a sudden like just pick up. Like my son, one time we were painting 12 offices. I'm like, where did my son go? He's 7 years old. He's in an office painting it himself, taped it all. Like he watched us do a room and went and did a room himself. And it's that they need that. And sometimes, if you're not a parent, veterans, we need that. We need somebody to go to one of these events. You're going to be appreciated for giving that time, and it's sometimes you just need to be surrounded around those people. Sometimes you're feeling alone and you just need to get out, but you don't want to get out. So it's get out to do a cause for somebody else. So it's not about you that might get you out of the house. So finding those different ways to connect so that we can change this world.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said that. Like sometimes it's not about you, like it just connecting on like a different level. Cause once you see that person appreciate like just the simplest thing, it could change like your perception and your attitude. So it really is a ripple effect. And so for anyone who is listening, please look at missioncontinues.org.
Yes.
Okay, so go to missioncontinue.org, see if there's any around you. Like, stay in contact with Kim because she clearly knows nonprofit organizations. So, if there is something that piques your interest, she may be able to guide you into the right direction. Like she said, start slow and find something that you're passionate about. You may not want to do the food drive, but if you want to donate time for like me, I love fitness, like to do like a fitness class or a fitness event, like that's still creating a community or a sense of purpose. So, find something that you're passionate about. So reach out to Kim because clearly she is phenomenal when it comes to this kind of work.
I definitely have to thank God for it because I feel He blessed me to have that intrinsic motivation. And that's the thing. A lot of people are like, you could get paid so much to organize and to do all of this. And my son's actually getting his degree in organizational leadership too. So it's just cute to see how it does affect them. But to be that change and to be that person that wants to make that change, but start little. Start something. Even if you learn something, reach out. And then kimkidpossible@gmail.com is another great way, one of the emails to reach out to me. So if you're interested in saying, hey, how can I help this nonprofit? How can I start my own nonprofit? How can I connect? I don't mind helping anybody. So I appreciate it so much for this platform, for everything you do. I know I mentioned it earlier. We don't get a lot of females doing interviews, female veterans when I go to events. So to connect with other veterans, to share our story and talk about our service and the wonderful things we do after service to continue to serve. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Well, thank you so much, Kim, for those kind words because you just make me feel like I just tear up.
Oh,
But thank you so much for taking your time and dedication to this podcast to share your mission, to share your journey. So, again, thank you so much. For everyone who is listening, thank you so much for paying attention. Again, please reach out to Kim, especially if you're interested in any nonprofits. Particularly ones that help veterans because, veterans love to help veterans and we need more of that. Anyway, if you guys have any questions, please reach out. Until next week, we will talk to you soon.
have a blessed day. Thank you so much.